The VA Medical Center offers just about any kind of medical care that you can imagine. From emergency care, we have emergency rooms that operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We also have primary care or routine care. If someone just needs a general flu shot or a medical checkup, we offer that. We offer specialty care services to include things like allergy clinic, pain clinic, dermatology. So a lot of folks don't realize that, in addition to some of the other services that folks might be more familiar with, to include services for our geriatric populations, inpatient hospitalization.
Well, Operation Enduring Freedom that you're responsible for, that deals with our veterans who have come home from Iraq?
Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom and New Dawn. So this is a group of conflicts, really. So most folks think of Enduring Freedom as veterans coming back from Afghanistan, Iraqi Freedom and New Dawn as veterans coming back from Iraq. The conflicts actually include a lot of other areas that folks in the general population and even our veterans don't realize. So that could extend to Gulf waters, folks who have served in the Navy, to places such as Turkey and Djibouti. So some folks don't realize that, but these are, the conflicts combined are really the longest conflict since the Vietnam era. And so we often hear about the troops that are returning home from Iraq and Afghanistan. That's most often what we hear about.
What are some of the problems that the women and men of our armed forces are encountering as they make that transition from military life to civilian life?
Well, there are the things that folks hear about: the post-traumatic stress, the chronic pain, health complaints, unexplained health complaints and symptoms. Sometimes people are hearing about Gulf War illness, things like that. And there are also some larger social issues: unemployment, struggling going back to college. These veterans have enhanced benefits for OEF, OIF, so that includes 5 years free health care, anything deployment related, 180 days of dental care, and post 9/11 GI Bill benefits. So,
what are the post 9/11 GI benefits?
Those are similar to, folks hear a lot about GI Bill benefits from Vietnam era veterans. The difference being that they also offer a living stipend. So in addition to tuition and books expenses for those things, they cover a living stipend while veterans are returning to school. Sometimes they can actually transfer these benefits to their dependents if they're still in the military as well. So their spouses or children can use these benefits. Recently there was some transition made on how they can utilize these benefits. So most often folks think of traditional colleges, but they're also accepting the post 9/11 GI Bill benefit and something called VOW benefits in trade schools. So different CDL schools, welding schools, driver school, so a driver training school, things like that. So different schools than folks would think of as the traditional college atmosphere.
Are your veterans who are getting out of the service, or ones who have been out of the service for a while, are they really truly aware of the benefits offered by the Veterans Administration?
Yes and no. We do a lot of outreach and education. So since the conflict started in 2001, 2.4 million veterans have been engaged and served, or I should say service members. Only about half of those folks have actually been discharged, and an even smaller portion, a little bit over 800,000, have established care at the VA. So that gives you an idea of the expansive numbers of folks who are eligible for these benefits versus the small group that are actually coming in to use the VA healthcare services, I should say. So we do a lot of outreach with the military folks to educate them before they mobilize. We go out on pre-mob briefings, they call them, to meet with the units, and we also do mid-tour family briefings to educate the families about the new services we're offering at the VA for family members. And then when they come back, they have different events for that. So all military members coming back have a post-deployment health reassessment that they're required to do through the military, and we support those events with the VA. And that could be, we offer healthcare screenings, and if they're referred directly for medical or behavioral health care, we offer that appointment on the spot and support on the spot. We also are involved a lot with Guard and Reserve units coming back and what they call yellow ribbon events.
Right.
And so when they come back, they're put on orders. They have 30, 60, and 90-day events when they return. And the veteran and their family members are paid to go on a drill weekend and stay in a hotel and learn about services in the community and with the VA, and we support those events as well.
It seems to me that in areas like where we live, where you have a VA hospital, or in areas around the country that have military posts, that you have people right there that can address those problems. But there are loads of parts of the United States of America that don't have military posts and they don't have VA hospitals. Where do those people go?
Well, you bring up a good point, and something that we're familiar with in upstate New York, in that we have primarily Guard and reservists in our area. And so folks are coming back and they're not connected with a major military base per se. And so we offer community-based outpatient clinics. We also are doing some neat things like telemedicine, where our outpatient clinics are offering specialty services like PTSD, substance abuse, even our pain clinic via the television, so they can come in to their local community outpatient clinic and be linked up with specialty care services without having to travel all the way to the local hospitals. But you bring up a good point in that it is a challenge, I think, particularly not just all veterans, but with the Guard and reservists, you have some folks who are coming back into civilian life who don't have the supports that maybe some of the active duty folks do have. They're not on base with the families and things like that. Okay,
let's pretend Fresno doesn't have anything like that, and someone is discharged from an area and all of a sudden they're back home in Fresno. Where would they go to, like a military reserve recruiting center, to find out where you can get this help from the military or from the VA? Where do they go?
Well, they can go online. They can use their local debt service officer. We have benefits counselors all over the country.
So there is someone in every community in the country. Okay.
Correct. There are county and state debt service officers. There are also benefits counselors that work directly for our VBA. VA is a large entity, so some folks don't realize we have, three main parts: the hospital, the benefits, and cemetery administrations. And so the OEF-OIF program is a conduit and kind of a gateway to those services. So the program manager's information is on the website. There's a returning veterans website. If you go to va.gov, you'll find that. You can actually look up your zip code or your area where you reside or where your family member resides and look up the location for the closest services. We also have hotlines, a lot of national hotlines where they can call in. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have a crisis hotline.
And it's live?
It's live. It's trained professionals. And so this is not different from, military crisis hotline, VA crisis hotline are actually the same numbers, 1-800-273-TALK. And if a veteran or a family member were to call in, it could be something as risky as a potential suicidal thoughts, or something as generic as, I'm concerned about my spouse or my son. And they'll actually talk to a trained professional, and if needed, not only will they get them into our system, but they can send out help. And we've actually done, I think the number is, 26,000 rescues since its inception in 2007.
That is a great service. I was not aware of that line existing. And also what is very nice is the fact that there is a live individual. You're not getting voicemail. Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And so it's something that the VA is taking very seriously.
And these people are obviously, before they are given the responsibility of answering that line, they're obviously trained, right?
Correct. They're licensed clinical social workers or licensed master social workers.
Now, you have different generations of veterans that you're dealing with. And let's go back to World War II. What are some of the problems that the veterans of World War II are facing today and that the VA is able to help them out with?
Well, I'd like to say that we have very similar services for both returning veterans and all era veterans. So the suicide hotline, or crisis hotline rather, that I just spoke about. There's also a caregiver program that we recently rolled out. So in addition to the medical services, mental health services that I just spoke about, housing services, that's for all of our veterans. It's not specific to returning veterans. The benefits counselors I spoke about. But the caregiver program is relatively new in that in the past few years, the VA has stood up a program specifically for caregivers of our veterans, because we realize that a lot of family members are having to take care of whether it be older veterans or returning severely injured veterans. And so there's a hotline for that program. There's websites for that program. There's an additional hotline for coaching into care for loved ones who are trying to get their veterans to come in for care. So we're really trying to build these programs.
Okay, I have heard that each generation's problems are unique from the combat experience. Like, I understand the veterans of World War II, they had a chance to decompress when the war ended. They were in the country occupying for a while, and then they sailed back on the ships where they were able to decompress by the time they got back home. Whereas in the Vietnam War, you could be in Saigon on a Monday and be discharged and be sitting on your front porch the following Sunday, and and no chance to decompress. That's what I was getting at.
Sure, sure. And there are differences and similarities there. I think there are positives to being able to come back and decompress. That is actually offered for our returning veterans as well. I mean, they're offered now the opportunity where, with that post-deployment health reassessment that I mentioned, if they notify folks that they're having concerns, they'll keep them on orders, and they'll take care of them and try to recuperate prior to returning them to their families. Or they'll put them on leave or light duty and make sure they're allowed the opportunity before they return to work to kind of get treatment as needed or medical care. And as far as the older veterans, I think that, from what I hear and from what you're telling me, things were different in that, yes, they had the time to decompress, but they really didn't have the services in place. That, was post-traumatic stress was not well known. It wasn't as researched or talked about. And so I'd like to think that we have those services now and that we're a little bit more prepared, but we're also offering them to our older veterans. And we're seeing actually a surge of Vietnam-era veterans coming in for these types of things now. Well,
it's funny you bring up the Vietnam veterans. I have the honor of emceeing a lot of your events and working with Peter Potter, who does so much for the VA. And at one of your recent events, I learned that you seem to be dealing with the Vietnam veterans more now than one would expect. And from what I understand, when the Vietnam vets came back, they went back to school, they focused on raising their families, they focused on their careers. And now all of a sudden, the kids are grown up and they're retiring from their careers, and what they never thought about, what happened in Saigon years ago, it's now crashing on them, and they're thinking about it 30 or 40 years later. That's kind of what's going on right now?
Yes, I would agree, and we are seeing that. And so, as I mentioned, an influx or an increase of Vietnam-era veterans who have recently retired, or we hear some folks say that, I'm seeing this on the news with returning veterans, or I have someone who is a loved one, or someone I know who's recently returned, and this is kind of kicking up some stuff that I was dealing with. And I've heard more about the programs and services that you're offering. I'd like to give it a shot.
Now, you were saying that the VA is helping the homeless no matter what war they fought in. Do you have buildings that people can reside in, or homeless shelter? How exactly are you helping them?
Sure, and it's different across the country, but we work with community. We have contract housing, which is, we pay for a veteran to reside either in a community residence or shelter emergency housing situation. We also have really been focused more recently on what's called rapid rehousing. The idea being that a veteran or anyone who is experiencing homelessness may actually be better off being housed in their own apartment. And so we're working closely with our local housing coalitions and landlords in the community, and we're actually finding apartments, and we're helping to subsidize these apartments while we're also providing health care services.
Well, you mentioned unemployment being a big problem. If you're homeless and unemployed, that means you don't have any revenue coming in. Does the government pick up and pay the rent for that veteran?
It's based on their income, so it's a portion. They pay a portion. They're unemployed, but if they have they pay a portion of their income. The goal is to actually find them employment, or if they're unable to work, which happens in some circumstances, assist them with applying for service-connected disability or Social Security. And so we're trying to help them stabilize so that they're able to, we're not just paying for the rent, but we're also making sure that they have food on the table, that they're able to pay the bills to keep the heat and the lights on. And so a part of that might be helping them look for jobs, and we're really building up a lot of our employment programs. So there are employment programs for retraining if you have a disability you incurred in service.